representation a couple minutes after 7. So welcome to the Astro Cafe for November the 20th, 2023. We have a few things on today. I wanted to talk briefly about the last Wednesday at the university. There is a particular anniversary of a birth today I want to talk to. I think it'll be of interest to all, and actually it ties into a whole bunch of things that we've talked about and what we've done. And then Randy has some announcements. Joe Carr wanted to talk about some stuff. And anybody else who contribute would be greatly appreciated. So to start, I guess how to move into this. As anybody who watches football may be aware, a heavenly moment arrived with 30 seconds left for Montreal. They won the Grey Cup with a touchdown in the last 30 seconds. So using that as a really corny segue into other heavenly events, I just wanted to put something on the record here at the Astro Cafe. For anybody who hasn't seen the notice, in Randy's email that was sent out in November, didn't attend the Wednesday evening, hasn't seen it in the Capital Daily, hasn't seen it in the RASC newsletter. Yeah, I know, Lauri. I wanted to let everybody know that Lauri Roche and Chris Gaynor have been honored with asteroids named for them. I wanted to just quote Randy for a moment because I thought his little précis was very touching. Lauri and Chris do so much for the amateur astronomy community and astronomy outreach across Canada. Thank you. We appreciate you and are thankful to have you as members of the Victoria Centre. You now have namesakes traveling among the stars. So if we could offer a virtual congratulations, I think that would be very appropriate. So congratulations.
Thanks, everybody. It's been fun.
Thank you. Randy, you said that you have an introduction to make.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to go straight into talking about the asteroids because you brought it up, and then we'll do that.
There's a segue. Okay, go for it.
That was the segue. So I'm going to go share and go F5. Is that going to do it? There we go. And we just have to fix up our screen here up in the room. So the working group of small body nomenclature of the International Astronomical Union had their most recent publication, volume 3, number 15, on November 8th. And in it, they named, what was it? Something like 20 Canadians among the 40 or so new named asteroids. There's now something like 22,000 named asteroids. And among them, here we go. This was lovely smiling pictures of our two new stars. And so the actual citation, and I'm going to put you on the spot, Peter Jedicke. He's the one that submitted, I think, all of the ones across Canada to the working group, and you've been kind of tireless at promoting Canadian astronomy among the stars, and so thank you very much, Peter. So we gave a bit of information, and then Peter knows exactly what this working group likes to see, and is very successful. Anyway, let's just read it out because we are so appreciative of our two honored members. Lauri Roche is a retired math, science, and special education teacher who joined RASC Victoria Center in 1995 and leads local outreach activities. Does she ever? She was president of the club in 2011, 2012, won the RASC Service Award in 2019, serves on the Education and Outreach Committee for the whole country, and is the director of the Friends of the Dominion Astrophysical Observatory. And I think everybody who ever has a chance to catch her infectious enthusiasm is the better for it. Anyway, here we go. Asteroid 20035 was discovered in 1992. It's not even 3 kilometers across. It takes 3.5 years to go around the Earth. And if you go jump ahead with this particular program, which is from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, you see that, well, right now, Lauri Roche is in the morning sky, but very close to the sun. And the Earth is going to zip around, and it'll come in the evening. And then as we approach September, it'll get closer and closer and closer. So it really is this summer that we have a chance to see Lauri Roche up there in the sky. What magnitude? It's not going to be naked eye, that's for sure.
On so 14.5 or something like that.
So it's going to be one of you really clever astrophotographers who have to share a picture of it. Okay, Gainer. It's not Chris Gainer. Oh well, but asteroid Gainer, also discovered in 1992.
All my relatives are happy about that.
Christopher Gainer is a Canadian journalist, historian, and amateur astronomer with a PhD in the history of technology from the University of Alberta. He's written 6 books about aerospace, including Not Yet Imagined, the operational history of the Hubble Space Telescope, published by NASA in 2021. Gainer was president of the RASC in 2018 to 2020. And again, you've helped the Canadian amateur astronomy community so much, and this is such a deserved honor. Now, turns out that Gainer is about twice as big as Lauri Roche, but slower.
That's not right.
So you can see that he's
That
already
sounds like the real people.
He's already in the evening sky. You see that you see from the Earth to Gainer, you're on the far side of the sun on this diagram. Let's see if I can do that with the mouse. So if you draw a straight line, Earth to Gainer, it's on the evening side, but the Earth is going to zip around while Gainer moves. And so it will actually be in June that we're in opposition. So actually in the spring, we should have a good view of your celestial star. And again, kudos to anybody who gets the first photos and shares them at Astro Cafe. I just want to say, because it was still a recent event, is Sid on? Anyway, Sid was the most recent member of the Star Club. That was, I think, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. And as everybody knows and appreciates, he's been running our telescope loaning program, but is particularly been very involved with outreach into in the schools with Lauri. Couple of others in the club. Betty Hesser has her own asteroid, and I love this. Passionately curious about and gifted in languages, music, and science. And anybody who's ever talked with her knows that's absolutely true. And Look at that, husband and wife. Jim is also in there. Is Jim here tonight? Oh dear. Anyway, both very, very valuable members of our community.
Do they revolve around each other?
Absolutely. I like this one, Jack Newton. Not somebody who I've met, but Jack and Alice, again, husband and wife, are up there in the sky. And just looking a bit more at him, he really started the amateur use of CCDs for amateur astrophotography. Really, a really important work, I think, in the 70s, certainly in the 80s.
Yeah, most of the early CCD images were from Jack. You would have seen it on Astronomy Magazine and Sky and Tel.
And the other thing I saw, looking more into him today, he, until last month, was running the Astronomy B&B in Asteroids, and it closed October 1st, 2023. So I hope that they get their well-deserved retirement. He can't be young. And I hope somebody...
His birthday's there, so he's what, 80?
Yeah, and thank you.
Alice in particular.
And I hope somebody buys that that place, because it looks like it's got a pretty good observatory.
No, they're gonna stay. They live 6 months in Vegas and in Arizona. In Arizona.
Good for them. So they're just going to use that as their house now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Jack has always had an observatory in his house,
I bet.
even when he was in Victoria.
So I went through the list in the RASC, the RASC website, which I believe, Peter, you had a hand in compiling. Jim Hesser isn't in it, you might want to know. And there's one other one that was missing. Was it Sidhu? But Lauri Roche and Gaynor are both in. So I've organized these by year of discovery, and to make it a bit easier, I've color-coded them. So, and Peter, I've decided to call you a Victorian because you join our club. So, and it looks like it's not just you, it's your whole family is honored. So good for you. So the amateurs are in green, and you should know all of them by now. The professional astronomers are in red, and I've met a few of them. Jeremy Tatum came and interviewed me after I saw a fireball, because he had this program where he would talk to everybody who saw one, so he could work out where they flew, and that was pretty fun. I happened to see one while I was jogging on Dallas Road, and I don't know how he found out about me or I found out about him, but the next day he was there with me saying, "Where did you see it?" Crampton, David Crampton, at the end, he sang tenor with me in the Philharmonic Choir. We also have DAO and UVic in that class, but yeah, these are all members that were very important. Clement Haga was the head of the physics. I think he started the physics department at UVic. Anyway, if anybody has questions about these people, I'm sure between us we could work some things out. The black one is interesting. Anne Makasinski was one of our science fair kids, and I think 1 year we took all the champion science fair kids and turned them into stars. Anyway, she is very accomplished. She's gone on to be a real what do you call it?
Force.
Young women in science force, yeah, and I'm really impressive young adult. So I don't know how to classify her, but the other ones are kind of performers. Clewick is for give me a hint, her name, the artist. Emily Carr, thank you. For her character. The Victoria Symphony, the Lafayette Quartet both got in there. Bob McDonald for his Quirks and Quarks. And Fraser Cain is not Victoria, but he's Vancouver Island. And he runs a wonderful podcast called Astronomy Cast, which I just love listening. He also does a lot of YouTubes. And if anybody has questions about other things, if I don't know the other people, I'm sure there are people who do. But that's this part of my presentation.
Colin Scarf is a professor at UVic, and just this month he has got time on the 48-inch telescope, even though he's retired. So he's active.
Who else is active among this crowd? Crampton, I think, is doing some sort of design work on the 30-meter. Cavallars is the one that looks at
worked on New Horizons.
Hmm. Yeah, people know him as JJ.
Yes, and he runs the Canadian Astronomy Data Center now.
Yeah.
right.
And just to comment about a couple of others, Dr. Klimenhaga was an active member of our center. I used to sit with him in our monthly meetings when I was a little younger. And Colin Scarf for a long time helped us out with speakers and things.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Lots of ties to us here.
It's a really wonderful group of people that a good club to be in, Chris.
Yeah.
So congratulations to all the Victorian asteroid namesakes.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Very cool.
So this might be a bit a Randy Enkin show, but I'm going to keep the floor. There is a couple of new people here. There's a woman here named Susie and Suzanne. And are you on the screen? Wave and see if you're on the screen. No.
You can stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Then we can see you. There we go.
There, now give it a try. Try to wave down.
No, so can you come over this way and just say hi? And
There you go. Yeah.
Where am I?
You're on the screen now, Sue.
Second from the top.
there we go.
Oh, I see.
Maybe you can spotlight Cafe.
Here I am.
Yeah, we can do that.
Welcome.
And so Susan, tell me what your interest is and what you might have done before.
I find cosmology fascinating. And a few years ago at UVic, I took a course in quantum physics or mechanics, I forget which one. And most of my friends rolled their eyes and thought I was weird. And probably
We don't.
But one of my bucket list things is to see the full night sky without any city lights and to see the aurora borealis. So that's my bucket list. And in terms of my knowledge about astronomy, it's pretty well non-existent. I know where Venus is in the sky. And 2 weeks ago was the first time I've looked through a telescope and I saw Jupiter and 4 moons. So I'm just here to find out what excites me further. That's sort of the background stuff that brought me here.
That's great.
Yeah.
I hope you find your people. And is there any other newbie who would be interested in saying hi?
I kind of guess.
Go, come. Yeah, I'll just move here. This is the hot seat.
My name is Jared, and very interested in astronomy, and it's out there in the cosmos. I don't really have much of a science background. I'm not a stonemason. Do conservation work, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I was here a couple weeks ago, and it was quite informing. And I've been kind of a bit obsessed with the watching YouTube videos on astronomy and cosmos and whatnot. And it's a very friendly bunch of people here. So that's it.
What's a good YouTube that you like to watch?
I don't know, just searching. Very interested to see, like, like in Jupiter, like if you were to fall through and see how the gases, how they form planet.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just kind of kind of a layman, but I'm just really interested.
And is there anybody out in cyber world? Okay, well, one last thing. Yeah, let's unpin. Just since I've got the floor. Oh no, I've got a couple of things. That's right. So heavens, how do I do this? I go share screen and share, and I go escape here. Come on, escape. And then if we go here, no, if we go here. Yeah, so yesterday I was seeing that we had a nice clear sky and I didn't have a lot to do. And I saw that the sun was going to come over what I like to say is my second favorite crater, Cassini. And so I planned out that I would do three sketches, and then their clouds came. But I got 2 sketches in last night, and then I did another one just this morning. Not this morning, just before we came here. So Cassini is this guy, and it's a very shallow, very difficult to see crater unless it's right on the limb. And I was drawing around here and I saw this kind of set of 4 little mountains, and it was kind of nice. And then that was at around 6 o'clock, and then around 8:30 or 9, a couple of hours later, then you see the whole rim of Cassini illuminated and one of its craters inside. And had I waited another couple of hours and the clouds hadn't come, then I might have been able to see what I could see tonight, which is this 2 craterlets inside Cassini, like I could see just before. Well, I finished at 1838 and we started here at 7 o'clock. But it was really fun to see these mountains here come out of this set here. It looks very different when they're actually fully lit. Anyway, it was a very nice little experiment to watch sunrise over one of my favorite craters. And if you have to ask, definitely Clavius is my favorite crater, but for much the same reason. I like seeing the craterlets inside the crater.
So are those waves that you got on the right hand side, are those the electromagnetic radiation coming from the monolith?
These things, well, this is how you see it's all waves. Yeah. So yeah, this is the antenna,
and it changes frequency.
it's like
It's wonderful.
It's like the chime telescope. It's a whole array, gives you better resolution.
I think your mind is a full array already.
There we go.
Those are great, Randy. Really great.
That was really fun to do. It's something I tried to do a few weeks ago, and I got one picture and then the clouds came. So, you know, that's what happens.
You're gonna get more chances.
Of clouds?
No, clear. It's clearing up.
Oh, good. Except
First,
I don't get to do this during the week very often. I want to remind everybody next week to come in person, because we're hoping that we're going to get people bring the equipment that they would like to get rid of so that they can get all their new presents at Christmas. So you get rid of things, books and eyepieces and even optical tube assemblies and mounts and anything that you think other people want more than you. Anyway, please do come in person next week. We'd love to see you and have this. Is there more you want to say about that, Chris?
Let's carry on. I'm just gonna say what we've already got on the list.
Oh, we have a list?
Well, one person has said what they're bringing, so we will have a tripod, a modified Canon 6D camera, a couple of EF Canon camera lenses, a manual filter wheel from ZWO, and a tripod pan head and a flash.
Somebody's got good equipment.
Yes.
Anyway, it would be awesome if we had more people here, both to sell and to buy.
Yeah, bring your money.
Bring your money.
There's a question.
Randy,
Yeah,
for example, do you guys need another, I don't know where your copy is, but do you need another regulator or something like that?
I don't think so. We
have one, but
We have, yeah.
we don't do it anymore.
Oh, okay.
that stopped with COVID, and we haven't thought of bringing it back yet.
We have one.
I think what Randy's saying is that we need a volunteer to make the copy.
Well, there is that.
Well, if it works, I'm sure.
And I guess one last thing is we are in this situation now that we need somebody who is both willing and capable to oversee our website. And I'm not the person who can say why this is difficult. I gather that it is something that will take a certain amount of effort, but it is a very important organ of how we communicate. And we're kind of in a stopgap situation right now. And we certainly would like if somebody had the brain cells and a bit of time to do this service. And I think if anybody is even slightly interested, they should talk to Joe.
Talk to me. Just to clarify, I'm continuing on as webmaster. In other words, the content of the website. But what we're after is someone to actually run the infrastructure underneath the website.
Can you hear that, everybody?
Or at the very least, find a company that will do the job for us.
Yes, yes.
You know,
If it
something
costs
like-
money,
we have,
it's still
we have
important.
some funds,
Yeah,
but that would have to be worked out with council, not me. Because they're the ones that do the money.
yeah, but we need somebody who knows what to ask the company to do.
What kind of software are you using? WordPress?
We use WordPress,
Yeah.
yes. So it's very, very common, very simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to pay for the hosting, pay through a company called SiteGround. I think it's like $150 for the first year, then it's $350 a year after that. You build as many websites as you want with it. But
Can you talk to Joe after the meeting? That sounds really, really good.
Excellent.
There's also, if I can interrupt, Google, can you believe, offers something called Google Sites.
again, can you bring this up with Joe after? I think I'm all finished. I probably will say something later on, but I think you've heard enough of me.
Well, I'll keep you on for later on as well, Randy. So just think things up.
Okay.
Last Wednesday, we have a monthly meeting now at the university. Last Wednesday, it was Brenda Matthews. Brenda came and actually brought her Girl Guide troop. Brenda's a research astronomer at UVic. She works with NRC and through Hertzberg. She spoke with us about her work on circumstellar disks. So I just have a little bit of information about that. So give me a moment and I'll pull this out. So as I said, Brenda was speaking about circumstellar disks, which is her area of research. As I thought I was just going to talk about it briefly, but as I looked into it, there's a bunch of interesting things that came of that. Some things we talked to her about, and some things that if anybody has some further knowledge here, I'd be interested in. But we'll come to that as we go along.
We don't see your presentation.
Oh dear. Okay. Your screen sharing is poor. Okay. So I've been talking into the air, have I? Sorry, guys.
Nope.
Do you see anything at this point?
Just a file list.
File list.
Okay. Give me a second. Okay, so we're back here, and I will just try sharing once more. How was that?
Much better.
Good. That's what it's supposed to be. Good. Okay. So Brenda talked on circumstellar disk, which is her area of research. These are disks that form around new stars, and they are related to the origin of planets. So she presented the conversation to us, and I know that intellectual property, especially in current research, is of importance. Any of the slides here I've run past Brenda, so they're all fine for sharing. She was interested in circumstellar disks and their role in planetary evolution. The interesting thing about the work she was doing is she's been using millimeter and submillimeter astronomy, which is basically astronomy in the microwave portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. The advantage there is that the longer wavelength of the light allows combination of signals from arrays, which are a series of radio telescopes that are set up and operating together. That allows a much larger apparent telescope and allows resolution of much more distant images with very faint light coming from them. The other advantage of this wavelength is the light passes through obscuring dust that impairs visual signals. Just a quick review of the electromagnetic spectrum. We see in that very, very narrow range between 400 and 700 nanometers. The telescope array that Brenda was using is in the millimeter and submillimeter range, which again is the microwave spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. one of the issues with viewing in the submillimeter wavelength is that it can be degraded through a water vapor. So the telescopes have to be situated at very high altitude, clear skies, dry skies, and little interference with water vapor at that altitude. She in particular is using the Atacama large millimeter array, which fortunately breaks down and is called ELMA. It's comprised of 66 antennae that can be spread over 16 kilometers, which gives a huge apparent telescope size. And the kind of images she can get with that are quite amazing. Just by comparison, she showed us this slide. The ELMA array is actually at 16,500 feet compared to Keck, which is at 14,000. A question that occurred to me only as I put this together, and it didn't occur to me to ask her during the presentation, is it's all very well to be impressed by how high the telescopes are situated at. But 16,500 feet is in the range of quite significant altitude sickness in a certain percentage of people ascending to that altitude. So not only slow ascent, but the pulmonary edema and cerebral edema that can occur at that altitude occurs with prolonged exposure. So if there is anybody here who's done some work with altitude astronomy with any large display, with any large arrays or single telescopes, I'd really appreciate it when we finish, if you can talk to how people are acclimatized to the altitude, or whether it's just a question of going up and coming down in a brief period of time. So I'll leave that till the end of the presentation, but I'd be very interested if there's anybody who's had experience with that. The ELMA display was established in 2013. It's currently managed by United States, Canada, Europe, and Japan in the north, in a desert in northern Chile. It is, as I said, situated at 16,500 feet, which is above the 5,000 meter mark for altitude sickness, for significant altitude sickness, and it's comprised of 66 high precision antenna. A month ago, Chris Merwa spoke to us about his manipulation of light and his ability to directly image exoplanets. So this is the next demonstration of quite amazing use of technology to image things that are beyond belief in terms of what can actually be imaged. So just a quick talk about something a little bit peripheral to the actual image, but it's important in terms of understanding what she was doing. When she looked at classic cosmology, the formation of solar systems occurs with firstly molecular clouds. Gravitational collapse brings the clouds together to a sphere. With angular momentum, the sphere rotates. There's ejected gas and material from the axis of rotation, but there then forms a circumstellar disk. And the circumstellar disk is eventually where it's thought that planets will form. Brenda's area of research actually has to do with the formation of planets in the circumstellar disk. And the nature of how they form, where they form. Classic cosmology has condensation and then accretion and then gravity pulling the various components together so that you actually get planets circulating the early sun. This is all theoretical until you get into some real imaging. Now, the really neat thing about the submillimeter display. So this was an early planetary system that's been known about in the constellation Taurus. It's HL Tauri or HL Tau. It's about 450 light years away, and this was the image that they were able to get back in 2004 in one of the early and this was in a millimeter display, not in a submillimeter array. So this was from Karma in 2004, and this was the image that they were able to come up with at ALMA in 2015. When I look back through some of my notes, this particular image is actually well known, and this is a colorized version of it, but quite impressive in terms of showing the planetary formation in the areas of the circumstellar disk around the early sun. This is another example, and again, they're within our galaxy certainly, and these tend to be about 400, 500 light years away. So they're getting quite phenomenal imaging that's very convincing. In this particular image of the circumstellar disk, they were able to image two forming planets. There's a lot of questions in terms of, what the nature of the planet is that forms, why they form in the distance they do form. They're coming up with some hot Jupiters, which are in places they shouldn't be, but there's a lot that'll need to be explained. They've come up with a whole bunch of different circumstellar disks. This was her proud display of a number of the images that they've come up with from distant forming solar systems. Very impressive, and obviously lots more work to be done with that. The talks, both Brenda's and Chris Marwa's the month before, have been fascinating, and I just wanted to once more put the monthly program out here so that if there's interest, anybody who hasn't been, these are really worthwhile to attend. Now, is there anybody who's done any work with altitude astronomy that can speak to just acclimatization?
I have done some work up at CFHT, not on astronomy, but on the CFHT telescope itself. I also wrote the electrical specification for Gemini North, so that all the contractors and equipment manufacturers would adhere to the same set of rules, so when they plug things in, they would actually work. And when you're working up there, my company made the top end of the CFHT telescope, the F-16 top end that held the secondary mirror, and also facilitated aligning the secondary mirror when they swapped out top ends for different projects. So I spent quite a bit of time up there, just about got electrocuted because I discovered that the CFHT on the second floor, the electricians had wired the hot and neutral backwards on all the plugs that we plug stuff into. So that was a bit of an adventure. But as far as physiologically, you always have to, it's about, I forget what it is. Did you say 13,000 feet? What you have to do on your way up the hill is stop at 9,000 feet and acclimatize for about an hour, and you play ping pong or you have lunch or whatever you want to do. And then you go up there, and even after acclimatizing, when you're up there, just walking up a set of stairs, you feel like you're going to pass out. So it's a very harsh environment to live in, to work in, and you feel like you're about to pass out, and you feel like you're drunk. It's just a very unpleasant place to do anything. So this is why all the astronomers now sit down at the bottom of the hill and watch things on screens.
Gary, does it affect electronics?
No, it doesn't. It's actually pretty fine because everything up there is really, really cold all the time. So electronics like cold environments.
Gary, that's a lot of those effects are certainly oxygen and the low PO2. Do they limit you in terms of the length of time you're up there? Because both the pulmonary and the cerebral edema occur in a cumulative way over time of being exposed at altitude.
Yeah, they did let us only stay up there, I think, for a couple of hours at a time. So you'd have to go up and go back. You'd have to go up and down when you're installing equipment.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It usually takes a day or two for the really serious stuff to happen. Nobody's sleeping up at that altitude.
No.
Or are they?
But no, they're not. They're sleeping at 9,000 feet and in the at the the resort halfway up there for the astronomers. That's a very nice little place. It has a cafe and rooms to sleep for the astronomers.
Okay. Thanks very much. So Today is actually the anniversary, the 134th anniversary of Edwin Hubble's birth. I was going to put together a very short précis about him, but the guy is so fascinating that I have a presentation about him, and there's a bunch of things that we've talked about, and touches on a bunch of things we've done, and actually a couple of photographs that the Brock showed last week is a segue to this too. So I'll try this time to pull this one up properly. Please let me know quickly if you don't see it.
Just a comment, that's amazing that Edwin Hubble is 134. He's almost as old as Biden.
Okay, how does that look?
It works.
Awesome. If you push the right button in the right sequence, it does. Okay, so Mr. Hubble was born on November 20th, 1889. In his youth, he was an accomplished athlete. In high school, he focused on football, basketball, baseball, track, boxing, and read lots and lots of science fiction. And there's a story from 1906, I suspect it's apocryphal, but his principal at graduation said, "Edwin Hubble, I've watched you for 4 years. I've never seen you study for 10 minutes. He paused and then said, "Here's a scholarship for the University of Chicago." So he went to the University of Chicago for 4 years, and worked for 1 year as a lab assistant for Dr. Millikan, who went on later to win a Nobel Prize. He graduated with an undergrad in mathematics and astronomy, and then won a Rhodes Scholarship. But his dad didn't want him to waste his time with math and astronomy. He wanted him to get with it in life and be a lawyer. So he followed his dad's wishes, and he got a degree in law at Oxford. Came back to the States, passed the bar in 1913. He was so impressed with law that the next year he applied to teach high school, and was hired to teach high school at New Albany, and he also was able to coach the basketball team, but he taught math and physics. Then his dad died. So, oh, very exciting. There we go. So then he went to do graduate work at University of Chicago in physics, specializing in astronomy. He used the 24-inch refractor in Wisconsin. Little segue, he volunteered for the Army in 1917. Didn't see combat, finished when the war ended. He was a major. He then, in 1919, started working at Mount Wilson Observatory on the 100-inch there, which had just been installed. He finally did get his PhD from University of Chicago in 1921. Interesting, doing photographic investigation of faint nebulae. The interesting thing about astronomy in those days was that the universe was thought to consist only of our galaxy. There were faint smudges that had increasingly, they could see stars in, but the faint smudges were considered as to all be nebulae. The nebulae were thought to be mostly dust, and all the nebulae were thought to be within our own galaxy. So he studied at Mount Wilson the spiral nebulae, which were one of his most, which were the subject of his doctorate, and really the things he was most interested in at that point. A couple of years before he was there, in 1917, one of the astronomers there, Harlow Shapley, using a 60-inch reflector, had measured the size of the galaxy being everything that existed. They were using Cepheid variables at this time, which we'll return to in a moment, inside some of the globular clusters that we're seeing, and he assigned a diameter to the galaxy as 300,000 light years. We now know that that's a little bit closer to 100,000 light years, but he had a reasonable overestimate. But he thought that it was so large that nothing could be outside it, and he thought that everything was within the Milky Way galaxy. So Hubble was there in the early 20s. He was focused on the Andromeda galaxy, or the Andromeda Nebula at that time, which was a large spiral nebula, angular size being about 3 degrees. This was a photograph that Ken showed us last week. So obviously a great object in the sky for photography. There's stars within it, and they were certainly seeing stars within it through the 100-inch, but they were still, the thinking was still that this was inside our Milky Way galaxy. He did identify a Cepheid in the Andromeda galaxy in 1923. Little segue, people were using the Cepheid variables to look at stellar distances, and as you recall, this was a technique that had been perfected, brought to attention by Henrietta Leavitt, who was working at Harvard. She was a researcher at Harvard, looking at stellar magnitudes, and recognized that Cepheid variables were the brightness of the Cepheid variables was directly related to their periods, because they knew then the absolute intrinsic brightness of the variable. If they could get the relative brightness of the variable from Earth, they could calculate the distance. Henrietta Leavitt was the gal who was featured in the Silent Sky play that was at the Belfry, and she was also featured in The Glass Universe, which is a book that we talked about a year ago at Astro Cafe. So returning to Edwin for a moment, then he found the Cepheid variable in Andromeda, and much to his delight, because he thought that there was a lot of stuff outside the Milky Way galaxy, and much to other people's consternation, he calculated the Cepheid variable in Andromeda to be about 900,000 light years away. So it was a somewhat of an underestimate. The Andromeda galaxy is about 2 million light years away, but at the time, it was far enough away for him that it demonstrated that the Andromeda galaxy was actually a galaxy of its own outside our own galaxy. So he started demonstrating that the nebulae, the little smudges that people thought were dust clouds and inside our own galaxy, were actually galaxies, many galaxies far outside of the Milky Way. Then he started comparing the galaxies and looking at their physical properties. He noticed that there were some similarities in the galaxies that he put together, devised a simple system for classifying them, which became known as the Hubble classification schema, or the Hubble tuning fork. So you're probably familiar with this because we've run across it with a couple of the talks previous to this year. Basically, he broke galaxies down into 4 types: elliptical, lenticular, spiral, and irregular. And I think initially this was thought to be a developmental schema. So galaxies went from elliptical to the lenticular type, and then 2 types of spirals. The irregular galaxies were outside the normal developmental schema. And interestingly enough, when Mallory Thorpe spoke to us, she also used the Hubble tuning fork in a much more advanced way when she spoke about her own interest in energetic galaxies, which tended to be the irregular ones. at the time, in the early 20s, physics was wrapped around relativity and quantum mechanics. In the theory of general relativity, it appeared that the universe could not be stable, which was the thought at the time, but had to either be expanding or contracting. Hubble provided the first observational evidence that galaxies were actually moving apart. He determined this by looking at the red shift. So light emitted from other galaxies was shifted towards the red end of the spectrum, longer wavelengths, which meant they were moving away. He further noted that the expansion of the universe was at speeds proportional to the distance. So the further away things were, the faster they were moving away. Just quickly to finish up on his life, he didn't do a lot of other research work after 36. He was the first observer on the 200-inch Hale reflector at Mount Palomar, and then he died in 1953. One other thing that he's known for is that at the time he was living, there were no Nobel Prizes given in astronomy. They were in physics, but no work in astronomy was recognized as being Nobel Prize worthy. He spent a lot of time lobbying for that, though. And finally, after his death, astronomy was recognized as one of the sciences that Nobel Prizes could be awarded for. Quickly, he founded extragalactic astronomy. He identified extragalactic nebulae as being galaxies separate from our own. He classified galaxies as being elliptical, spiral, lenticular, or irregular. He noticed that light from distant galaxies was shifted towards the red end of the spectrum, noted a velocity-distance relationship, which is known as Hubble's law, where galaxies moving away are moving at a speed proportional to their distance. This upended the static notion of the universe, and it was provided the first observational evidence of the expansion of the universe. So, a pretty accomplished fellow. So, when we come to the present, the Hubble Space Telescope, which allows us to look further out than any telescope previously, has been quite well named. So that is Edwin Hubble. Any questions or comments?
Well, that.
Chris, I did this with, as you know, a great great humility. I hope I didn't massacre anything too much for that.
No, good job. Good job. Yeah, I think the one thing I would say is just you're right at the end, naming Hubble after Hubble was kind of refining the work he did with Andromeda. When they launched Hubble, they wanted to get a good idea of how big the universe is and how far back in time and all that. And they've gotten a lot closer to that number, but there's still more work to be done.
Definitely.
And
Jeff.
that was a great presentation.
Jeff,
Yeah.
have any sense of whether Hubble worked mostly alone, or was he the name in front of a big team? Like the Harvard people, they had the glass universe calculators. It was a big team in Harvard, but I haven't heard anything about Hubble's team at Mount Wilson.
So it's interesting you say that, because I hadn't thought of it that way, but all of the stuff that I read really talked about him individually. So I really can't relate to, a team that coalesced around him. Do you know anything about that, Chris?
Oh yeah, that was my impression too.
you know, back then, there weren't too many astronomers around. And there was sort of a little group at Mount Wilson, which he was part of, but people tended to do their own thing, I think. And you know, they would often spend a lot of time together, you know, when they weren't observing, talking about things. But I think it was much more solitary back then.
Mhm. I would think with the kinds of things he was saying, also, you know, where people would say, "Oh, you know, the universe is static," and he'd say, "No, it's not," and they'd say, "Yeah, but you know, the universe only consists of our galaxy," and he'd say, "No, it doesn't." You know, I think that's you know, pretty solitary and pretty brave sort of direction to take, you know, running counter to the, you know, the flow of science at that time. I mean, certainly it was a very fertile time with people thinking about a lot of things, but they, you know, a lot of the other stuff tended to build on other people, as you say, and these ideas are so radical. I mean, they're not now, but they were so radical at the time. It's quite remarkable to think about how mind-blowing it was to have somebody saying this kind of stuff and then proving it.
Could I just say that Bruce Lane has written a number of articles in Sky News when he was the editor, and he's devoted one or two articles about Edmund Hubble and all of the problems he had with other personalities, strong-minded people in Caltech and at Mount Wilson and this sort of thing, that is really quite entertaining reading. So if you can look back at the Sky News articles, it's quite an interesting story, and Bruce had a flair for bringing all of these unusual characters to life. So I'd recommend that. The other thing is, getting back to ALMA, the base camp for ALMA is at 9,500 feet, 500 feet higher than for Mauna Kea. So, but they actually had a strike in about 2013 because they were concerned about the health effects for astronomers. So your concern, Jeff, is very well deserved in that point.
Interesting. Well, thank you for that. That's interesting information.
And as I understand it, ALMA was largely built with people that lived at high altitude to start with. So people in the area were used as workers up there because they
In Chile, yeah.
they could tolerate the altitude better than others.
Yeah, certainly they'd be acclimatized. Yeah, no, it's just, you know, that's interesting for construction, but you know, you get the different, well, the states in Canada, you know, helping to promote it. You know, they're bringing people in. You know, it would have been really interesting to ask Brenda about that, because she spent some time there. So that's really the presentation I have. Is there anybody at this point who?
Laurie has a question.
Oh, go for it, Laurie. Oh.
Yes, I wanted to know, and maybe there are people here that know this, is are there people that stay up at say the Gemini, or up on top of Mauna Kea? Are they to stay up who are the technicians, and they would stay up kind of over like more than a couple of hours at a time? Would they stay up over a night and be on duty and then come back down again? Or would they actually only stay up for, say, 3 or 4 hours and then there'd be a change of shift?
My understanding, Laurie, that there used to be operators staying up there all night because they didn't have all the automation they have now. So they simply got acclimatized to it. It takes you a while to get acclimatized, but you can do it.
But now it's more robotic and they don't have people up there?
It is more robotic, but I still think there are people up there, because things, as you know, it's amazing how many things can go wrong with telescopes. And and they need people up there just to get the thing working again. And believe it or not, remember that young lady that was with us that gave the talk on being at Subaru? And she had to turn the telescope on and off to reboot it?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
that still happens even today. It's quite amazing.
But before there was the guiding capability, somebody would actually sit inside prime focus with a little joystick focusing on one little star. David Crampton, who was one of the asteroid members here, he was telling me that it was the job of an astronomer to actually do the guiding that now you guys with your fancy home telescopes are getting the computers to do. So they were up there every night that they were observing. That was the biggest role, was just looking through a little telescope and making sure that some little guide star was in the crosshairs.
But they wouldn't
All
stay up
night
there.
long.
They wouldn't stay up there 24 hours though. They'd do their bit and go back down halfway up the hill.
Yeah.
For Hawaii anyhow.
Well, it's interesting to your previous point, Gary, about the the effects of oxygen. There certainly are stories that you can read about with ALMA, where astronomers who were up there, as brief as it may be, were just not putting it together, like they were cognitively impaired. The one guy talked about spending 15 minutes screwing a lid back on, but he was screwing it in the wrong direction. He couldn't figure it out. So you hope that some of the calculations are made, with a little bit more insight, but I'm sure that they also are controlled from lower down.
It's quite a unique experience. You have a screwdriver in. What's that, Bill?
It's only 10,000 feet, right?
What's that?
Mauna Kea.
It's 13,000 feet, I think.
Is it 13?
Mauna Kea was 14,000.
13
Okay.
and a half or 14, that's right. So you'll be sitting there with your screwdriver and you'll know that you need to do something with this screwdriver, but you can't really figure out what you have to do with it. So it was a real chore to install equipment up there for people that weren't used to it. So it's quite an experience. And just climbing up a flight of stairs, like 6 or 7 stairs, you felt like you were going to faint. One of my business partners actually did faint, and they carried him down the hill in an ambulance and said, "You're not coming up here ever again." So it was pretty stressful on you.
So
yeah, I've hiked at 12,000 feet, and the first one that we did was like we went from sea level in Bangkok to within 24 hours hiking to 36 hours to hiking to over 12,000 feet, and that was like an interesting thing to do. Because it's
we taking any dialogues or anything like that for that hike, Bill, for that period of time?
No, we just hiked.
Yeah, okay.
But you'd be gasping for breath. It was an interest. The way you had to breathe was because normally breath just moves by you opening your lungs and the pressure pushes it in. But this was having to like suck the air in. Like actually had to physically, you'd go for another 200 meters and then you'd stop and you breathe and then you'd go a little more. It was quite interesting. But then after a few weeks, it was nothing. You do a hike like that and it was just like, yeah, it was a long hike, so you'd stop, but it wasn't like stopping to have to breathe.
Mm-hmm. No, you acclimatize over time.
Yeah, you acclimatize.
Interesting.
Could I just say something? At Mauna Kea is the altitude of 14,000 feet is an atmospheric pressure of about 600 millibars. So 40% less air there than they do at sea level. So consequently, the concentration of oxygen is about 40% there. At near 18,000 feet, we were closer to 50% of the oxygen content. So it's pretty tough sledding there. But what we were talking about, ALMA, it's a beautiful example of international cooperation, and it's a very prestigious instrument. I don't know if many people know that the recent director, I don't know if he's still there for ALMA, was the director of the Penticton Radio Telescope Dominion Radio Astrophysical Radio Astrophysical Observatory in Penticton. So
Interesting.
John's hand was up.
Say that again, please.
John's hand was up. John McDonald.
Okay, John, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I had it up for a while. It's okay. I just wanted to say a little incident about the CFHT that most people wouldn't know about. I happened to visit there the day that they had tried to put the mirror through the door into where it was going to be hoisted up and mounted in the telescope. And it got stuck. It wouldn't go through the door. And the fellow that took me up was the Canadian, whoever it was, the Canadian director, co-director or something. And he said what they had to do in a situation like that was just stop, put everything down, go back down to 9,000 feet and get, reacclimatized that way. And then sit around the table and think about the problem. And they were fairly quickly able to figure out how they needed to move the mirror to get it in through the door, and it worked.
But no chance.
It looked like it could be a disaster for a bit.
Interesting.
Wow.
So you think just reorienting with a little bit more oxygen in the system, in the brain in particular?
That said,
Others have said it's very hard to think at that.
Yeah.
Think clearly when you're up at that. In fact, this fellow that was showing me around, this Canadian co-director, he had a pretty serious bout of altitude sickness while he was trying to show me around. And so it can affect anybody. And I think he'd been up there many times, but all of a sudden he was not in good shape.
Right. Okay, any photography anybody has from the last week that they want to show? Brian, was that anything? Was that you saying yes?
I sent something in the chat, but it's not about pictures up in the sky.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's just an offer to show my slideshow grants.
Yeah, please do, Brian. It was
you didn't get a
pretty
chance
good on the
before.
beginners group.
Yeah,
that's right. It was only at the beginners group.
Yeah, happy to, but calls for astronomy photographs right now, right? Jeff, let me know when and if.
Absolutely. I've had no takers for photographs, so why don't you take over, Brian?
Okay. Yeah. First of all, apologies to council for missing last week's weekend meeting. I had out of town relatives, and then I had eye surgery a couple days later, second one. So I've been out of sorts, and so haven't been communicating very well. So my apologies for that. I put together a slideshow for the beginner SIG that met on Tuesday, November 7th, and I heard a couple of people on the Monday prior to that saying they would like to also see it. So I'd be happy to share that with you now.
Go ahead, Brent.
Okay, share screen. So my wife and I had our 30th anniversary a few years back, and we were going to go to Europe. And of course, COVID interrupted that. And so we planned to go to France and Barcelona in 2023, which corresponded with the for my benefit, Rugby World Cup. I started buying tickets a couple of years ago for a few games, and then, like a lot of trips, you start piecing the different legs of the trip together. So this is but you'll see part that trip got aborted fairly quick, fairly early, and so you're only going to see pictures of Paris and Bordeaux, and it also relates to the eye surgery I just had. This is called Observatories observed in France, because I actually didn't get a chance to go inside them. I happened to be in the cities when they were closed, or my circumstances didn't allow me to get in. But I'll let you know how you can book a tour, or I have the links to the websites if you'd like, if you're planning a trip. So yes, flew to Paris through Montreal on September 1st, and we were planning to be there until September 25th. And this is a picture similar to our hotel, but if we had a very good telephoto lens. This is a stock image, but the rest of the pictures you'll see are mine. But of course, we've got the Eiffel Tower, and then the Hospital of the Invalids, which was built by Napoleon to deal with all these to help all the war veterans from his wars. And that's where his body rests today. And I'm not sure about this building in the forefront, but it looks like an observatory tower. Sorry?
Saint-Sulpice.
Saint-Sulpice, okay.
And it's got a meridian line in it.
Oh,
There
this is
astronomy content there.
okay. All right. Well, maybe I've got some reference to the meridian, the old French meridian line at the end there, Randy. Maybe you can add to this. So it was our first trip to Paris, so very exciting. And like a lot of trips, you're pretty nervous, but we checked into our hotel, and I looked out the balcony, and lo and behold, there was a couple of observatories right there. So this is in the Latin Quarter, and that is the Sorbonne University, and it's 2 observatories, just a stone's throw away. And these were constructed in the late 1800s or turn of the century. One still has an equatorial refracting telescope in it, and the smaller dome is just a workspace for mirror polishing. They are run by the Société Astronomique de France, which is probably equivalent to our RASC. And they offer tours, but only a couple of days in a week. And you have and limited to like 6 people apparently, because of the very narrow space. So you can book online. So I can share this slide deck, so you can, if you are planning. I've already looked, and all the tours for November, December are already booked up. So I don't know how it's probably like Parks Canada reservations. You got to be poised with your mouse at right at midnight to book them. But yeah, so that was neat. And then we walked around the building, and we came across this building, which I recognized from, I don't know if it was a RASC presentation or pictures, but I thought that looks so familiar. That looks like the observatory where Charles Messier did a number of his observations. And sure enough, it was the old former Cluny Hotel, and now the current Museum of Medieval Art. And if you've heard about these tapestries about the princess or the lady and the unicorn, this is where they're housed, and amongst other kind of collections that predate the big ones in the Louvre and Versailles. Yeah, so this was nearby, and inside, first I asked if we could get up into the tower, and the people at the front desk had no clue who Charles Messier was, let alone that he had done some observing in this tower. But this is the tower that you kind of walk past it as you go through the different galleries, but we couldn't get to the top. But on the base of it is a sundial, and the hour was the minute appeared to be correct, but it was an hour ahead. Like we were there at 4 o'clock, but it was showing 5 o'clock on the dial. And I'm not sure would that be because Paris was on on a different time in the
Paris
past?
is on Berlin time since the
Yeah.
Second World War.
Oh, okay, so it would have been 5 o'clock 100 years ago. Ah,
Yeah.
okay, so that makes sense. Thank you. And yeah, so kind of interesting. Looks like a little Rapunzel let down your hair turret, but so that was kind of a neat little piece there. And of course, most of you know a lot about Messier, but he did observatories at other places. The museum is quite reasonable price, 12 euros, and maybe I think I saw a reference to the society, the previously mentioned society, that they may offer some information about this observatory. And yeah, so you can check that out if you're there. So we took a train to Bordeaux, and we just planned to be there for a day. And so this was after a couple of days in Paris. We did the Louvre, the Versailles, the typical stuff. And then we took a train to Bordeaux, and we anticipated to be there for just a night and then carry on to rent a car, book it to Toulouse. But at walking through the Jardin Public here on the bottom left and looking at those ladybugs, I looked up, and there was a blank spot in my vision in my left eye, bottom right corner, and I knew what it was, but I didn't want it to be what it was, and I hoped it would have gone away the next morning, but it didn't. So I walked across the street and got an appointment with an ophthalmologist. Saw him at 11:30, and then by 4 o'clock I was in surgery for a retinal detachment. And that's my wife Yoshiko, who served as my Florence Nightingale for the next 2 weeks, because I had to. This is one of the rare pictures where I actually have my head up. I had to keep my head down, less than 45 degrees, night and day. We stayed at this. Fortunately, we found out an apartment hotel. This one on the right, and so we hunkered down there and had a little kitchenette. So Yosh cooked all the meals, and I just spent all my time on the phone, and I had to sell all my rugby tickets, and so I ended up watching them on my phone with my head down, and then aborting. We go through all the hassles of aborting and canceling trips and bookings, and dealing with the insurance company and corresponding with friends and family back home. Of course, it was, yeah, but what a better place, couldn't have asked for a better place probably to have it happen besides home, because their French medical system was fantastic. Doctor was great, so were the staff, and it was a positive outcome. But he replaced the vitreous in the eye with oil, because they use gas bubbles to keep the retina, this laser stitched retina now, in place, I wouldn't have been able to fly for 6 weeks. So he replaced it with oil, and that was the reason for my surgery last week, was to replace the oil and fill it up with saline. And I'm looking at you in this eye with like I'm looking through halfway in a pool. I can see things above, but the bottom half looks like I'm in water. But that pool, which is actually upside down, it'll actually drain off, or it'll drain in lay terms here, and I should get a full my vision restored to normal by next week.
Wow.
I can still observe in my right eye. My right eye has been keeping me busy, and it's amazing how the brain, when this eye's not working, how it took about a month or more to get the eye, everything just working through the right eye. But I haven't been driving for 2 months either. Not taking the risk.
You will find the right brain, left brain appreciation of the stars will change.
Yeah. Okay.
I found that when I was in New Zealand and couldn't use my right eye because I had a bad cataract. Observing with my left eye, and instead of being analytic, I would look at something and say, "Gee, that's pretty. I wonder what it is."
Yeah, I can't recognize things. Yeah, well, that fortunate. This is my, the good eye. And then as for cataracts, I guess that is apparently a consequence of these invasive surgeries, is that I'll probably have to go for cataract surgery in months to a year.
I go tomorrow.
Lori, yeah, I was gonna say when you said you were gonna go soon.
Yeah,
Tomorrow, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, good luck, Lori.
Thank you.
So after 10 days with my head down, doctor says don't, take it easy, but I was a little bit too cooped up. So they had these walking courses, and there was a 10, I don't know how many K, but we did about 10, 15K about 12K this day. But this is Bordeaux in the back, and on the east side above the river, there's this escarpment, and there's a walking course. And I was looking at the map, and hey, it goes by the Bordeaux Astronomical Observatory. But with my luck, it was also closed on the day that we went by, and I'd missed a window of opportunity to go join an open house on the weekend before, but I of course had to keep my head down. But this was interesting because kind of like the Henrietta Leavitt story, this was one of the first telescopes that actually took, and with the advent of photography, they took some of the first photographs of the night sky, and then with other participating observatories, they created the first map of the sky with those photos, and those original plates are still used to compare distance and or changes in the positions of the stars over the last 100 years. The observatory is run by the University of Bordeaux with this other Society for Sciences, and it's there's the address there if you'd like to look it up. Maybe get there on a day when it's open, or a night. So yeah, now with my head up, I could at least explore a little bit of what France was offered. But as those that have been there know, it's just wonderful for cheese and meats and breads and wines and dedicated stores for all of them. And we did get on another walk north of into the southern Hot Medoc region, where a number of wineries are, and some nice, probably one of the nicest dinners I've had. And then we took a day trip out to Arcachon, which is kind of reminded me of kind of like a Carmel, Santa Barbara little getaway for people in Paris, and a number of buildings up on this this hill where we were owned by celebrities, so they got their names on the houses. You could do a little walking tour there. That's pretty nice. That's a bay in the background, and then on the Pacific side, the Atlantic side, on the outside of this bay, is one of the largest sand dunes I've ever been on. Very popular tourist attraction. And there's my Dr. Formeau in the bottom right corner at the two-week examination, and things were looking good at that point. So thank you, Dr. Formeau. Back to Paris. So we went. We decided we because there was no rush to get back, so we just kept our return flights for the 25th. So we had 3 more days in Paris, and then looking at, they have these this area where they have antiques, and well, maybe it's old junk, but in that neighborhood on the way back, discovered there was the Observatory of Paris, but then looking it up, it appeared that they were closed for renovations. But this is probably one of the oldest, it is the oldest observatory site in France, established by the Sun King Louis XVI. The origins go back to the Royal Academy of Sciences, and it's now run by the Paris University. And the grounds are, yeah, so this is a picture through the gate. Again, closed gate, looking at an observatory. But I came across reference to this observatory in a book, like a historical book I was reading, that made reference to the Paris Meridian, and it goes right through. So you can see my mouse here, it's kind of right in the crosshairs here with this yellow line, but that's the grounds of the observatory. And then you can see it's almost like a straight nice line right through the Luxembourg Gardens, at the top of which is currently, it's probably an old palace, but it's currently occupied by the French Senate, heavily guarded, but the parks are publicly accessible. But this is the Paris Meridian, which was used for mapping France and figuring out exactly where the coastlines and north and south were. I'm not sure if it had any astronomical or time-related things, but it was equivalent to what is like a Greenwich, which of course we still use for UTM time. Yeah, so that was a neat little piece of history, like little interesting historical note, but I haven't pursued that much further. Hard to find information about this. Yeah, so that was there's the Senate at the north end of the Luxembourg Gardens. There's the book I picked up, learned a little bit more about some interesting anecdotes about France, including the origins or how. Anyway, and then Sainte-Chapelle, very highest glass
Brad,
stained glass windows.
My wife
Yeah,
and I were there in June.
Mm-hmm.
We celebrated our 40th anniversary in Sainte-Chapelle, listening to the Brandenburg concertos.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
At sunset, it was just stunning.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's lots of neat things seen. The top right. Has anyone seen the movie Midnight to Paris? It was directed by Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so neat because we were just by chance, we were walking. It was right past the Pantheon and Sorbonne, and I turned this corner and there was the church, and I looked at the street. I said, that's right out of the movie. So here I am reenacting a scene of being picked up by a taxi that's going to transport me back to the 1930s to meet meet some of the American literature greats of that hung around Paris at that time. And then not just down the street, actually, from that scene, there's I did catch the Ireland South Africa pool game, which was a hot ticket item. I'd learned later that I was trying to get tickets, but I couldn't. And then I learned later there was about 10,000 seats were empty because apparently all the Irish that came over with tickets got so drunk in the bars that they decided just to stay in the bars instead of getting on the train to go to the station. Yeah. And then I don't know if you've on the bottom right, did you I knew about the moon swatch from an article that Bruce Lane wrote a couple of years ago in our Sky News, and I've been looking for a watch since then, but you can't get them. There's only one store in Vancouver, and they don't even answer phone calls because but walking through the Paris airport, there was two watches. There was the mission to Saturn and then the Sun, because it's a series of the 9 planets and the Sun, including Pluto. And then so I picked up the mission to Saturn on the way through. So that was a nice way to end what was otherwise a botched vacation. And then, but to add insult to injury, I came home and had COVID. Typical, but the wife avoided that, which was good. But anyway, so it's not really an inside story on the French observatories, but it came close. I think the lesson is that if you are going to travel there, or even Switzerland, as we saw a couple of weeks ago, maybe book your tickets in advance, or plan your visits around their opening hours.
Brian, that's quite an adventure. Best of luck with the ongoing eye issue, but thank you very much. That's fantastic. That was really
photos.
I have a
Thanks.
little add-on to observatories in France. If you want to stay in an observatory for several nights, you can book a stay at the Pic du Midi down on the border with Spain. It's up on top of the mountains. And that's available for booking. I have never done it, but I found that website, and it used to be used professionally, but now it is run more or less as a tourist operation. It's quite exciting. You get up there with a cable car, which I did ages ago.
Was it Pyrenees?
In the Pyrenees, yes. Yeah.
South of Paris.
Well, good, good. Yeah, well, certainly I had thought about, because our primary purpose, get a few rugby games and see the things on, of course, the spouse's wish list, but definitely, planning another trip, I would look at observatories in the neighborhood, because you're not going to encounter the same crowds you do at a lot of the other European tourist destinations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just mention, Deep Sky is now at the IMAX at the museum, at the Royal BC Museum. I saw it yesterday. It's well worth it. Images. It does somewhat tell the story of the James Webb. Lovely photos of James Webb being put together. It misses large components of it, but it's a very it's a very nice film, and some of the images that came back are fantastic. It gets a little bit and we'll also find possibly life on other planets because we can see so far. But apart from that, it's really a very neat film. One other thing that's come up, I just wanted to mention to this group. We're starting to look a little bit now at Astronomy Day. And the observers handbooks are coming out for next year. So if you have, or if you will have shortly, an observer handbook from 2023, please hang on to it. They are great items at Astronomy Day. Likewise with any magazines, if you go through your house coming up to the new year to minimize entropy, try to hang on to them, or if you just can't hang on to them, write me and I'll come pick them up, because they are also very very nice to have for Astronomy Day.
Excuse me, Jeff, did you say that you wanted the old versions of the manual?
Absolutely. We put them out. They're very popular at the welcome desk. They have a lot of articles in them, as you know, that are universally applicable year to year.
Okay, great, good. I have a few.
Yeah, no, it's great. They really are very useful to have a number of them. Joe, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, I put the information in the chat about the calendar. This is not the RASC observers calendar. This is a local calendar.
Go right up with it to the camera.
Yeah, how close it'll focus.
Yep, it looks good there.
Yep, we have lots of good local photographs printed on nice paper. And you get all of next year for $22. I just have 2 left, so if anyone would like one, I would just promote it here and offer them to people. You can contact me by email. And the info's all in the chat. $22.
Is there anything else that anybody wants to raise or mention to the group? Lauri, hi, go for it. Yeah, you're on mute, Lauri.
There we go. I have about 5 calendars left for the RASC calendars, if anybody would like that. And then I also have, sorry, I'm just going to reach over here. I also have I have the 24 almanac. Sorry, it's blurred. I have the almanac. I have the workbooks for the Explore the Universe and for the Explore the Moon. I bought 2 or 3 copies of each, and so they are available if you'd like them. For sure, the almanacs, I think I have about five left. If anybody would like to have that, you can get a hold of me, and I can make sure that you get something. So that would be great.
Could you
I also
save
just
one? Save one for me,
live
Laurie?
next week.
Sorry.
Come live to the Astro Cafe next week with them.
Yes.
Will you be able to
She won't be.
attend? Your surgery?
I hope I'm going to be driving by next week. No?
Yeah.
Oh dear. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm not sure. All right. Yes, David, I have one for you. No problem. I mean, I've put aside, I bought 10 of them, so we can have that. Dave, Payne, did you have a question?
You're on mute, Dave.
I was just gonna show a picture when you're all done, Lori.
Oh, okay. I just then have a couple of things. Thank you to everybody who came out last Saturday night for our telescope clinic. Thank you to David Lee and to Dave and to Bill Weir and to
Jill and Brenda.
Jill and Brenda and everybody else who helped to give presentations and to put the telescopes out. We did have a few people who came up and needed to have some help with telescopes, and the medics did a really good job. Thank you very much for everything. Ken Mallory was also there helping with some of the things, and it was. I mean, unfortunately, it kind of was, not very much of a nice day, a nice night to look out at anything, but it was really, I think, quite successful. And thank you, David. You were the one who kind of pulled that all together. And I apologize for all the mess that I put you under with my car, but that's okay. Well, we got ourselves organized anyway. And then, so the only other thing was on December the 9th, which is a Saturday morning, we're going to have a fundraising pancake breakfast with for the Friends of the DAO, and everybody's welcome to come up between 9:30 and 11:30 on the Saturday morning. Hopefully we'll have some nice sun and we can put out the solar telescopes for people. You never know what's going to happen in December, but we could try that. But you're all very welcome to do that. And then on the 16th, which is the next Saturday, is our solstice party that we have for just before Christmas, and we're going to be doing some work with Pluto and doing a little bit of a fundraising thing for how far we can get around Pluto and trying to raise some money. We're going to have a debate and a little bit of of a kind of a fun way of trying to figure out still whether or not Pluto should be put back to being a planet or not. I mean, we know that scientifically that's not going to happen, but still within the tradition of the public, Pluto is still a very favorite planet, and we're still going to do some work on that. So that's what we're planning to do for things before Christmas. So everybody can be part of it, and we certainly are fundraising. And if anybody would like to help us with that, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
So that was the 9th?
The 9th is the pancake breakfast, and the 16th is the evening. The
16th, okay.
The 16th, yeah.
Dave, you've disappeared. Oh, there you are. You moved around.
Energetic has a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Lori, I have a suggestion for you. When you have your pancake breakfast on December the 9th, you're only just a few hours away from the moment of aphelion of Halley's Comet. Up until December the 8th, at about, I think, late in the evening, universal time, Halley's Comet stops moving away from the sun and starts moving back towards the sun. I think that is something worth a party. London Center is going to have our annual banquet that night. And if you're having a pancake breakfast, what a great way to tie the things together.
Thank you. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That'll be great. Yes.
I was taking a long shot that maybe you might not know it already.
No,
Since you
didn't know that.
because it's too perfect not to mention.
There we go.
You're the guy we'll find for reasons for a party, Peter. That's great.
Yeah, I hope I have that reputation. Yes, and I'm damn well going to work hard to keep it.
But then you only have to wait something like 35 years before it gets here, isn't it?
That'll be the next party.
So, we will find other excuses to party in between. Don't worry.
David.
Sure. I was going to share one image. It was actually taken back in September, beginning of September. Hopefully I'm sharing. Okay, I am sharing. This is Gamma Cassiopeia, Gamma Cass. No relation to Mama Cass. She was a singer. But this is the point in the middle of Cassiopeia's W. And it's a variable star that David Lee can tell you all about. And I think it's variable because it's covered by a gas cloud.
Yeah, it's actually one of the eruptive variables, but it's very irregular. Its outbursts are not, they're not regular or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's kind of random. But when you look at it with, when you image it, and you can see the dim stuff, there is this beautiful offsetting gas cloud or nebula, and it's really all three kinds of nebula in one. It's has emission. All that red is hydrogen alpha emissions. It's got reflections. You see blue in there. That's actually reflections of the starlight. And there's also patches of very dark areas where it's actually blocking out the light, and it is a dark nebula.
Nice.
So I was pretty happy with that, and you can see all the diffraction patterns that happen around a very bright object going through imperfect lenses and being squeezed too much, photons being squeezed too much. But here you have it.
That's beautiful, David.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So shot through a refractor, so no spikes, but you've got those diffraction lines.
Oh, sorry, I pulled it down. Yeah, it was shot through a refractor, but you've got diffraction lines.
Yeah, very nice. Does it have a name? The structure underneath?
Yeah, it's called the Ghost of Cassiopeia.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's a great picture, David. Just one more call. Any
It
other?
has IC designations.
Yeah, it's IC
57 and is it 62?
Yeah.
I thought it was 57 and 69 or whatever.
I wrote down 62. How's that? Unless I wrote down the wrong number.
Because I was just trying to remember what's 59 and 63. Because those are part of the Deep Sky Challenge in the visual observing.
So Bill, have you seen that?
I'm pretty sure
that area?
that's what they were.
Tell you what my plate solving said.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Any other comments?
59 and 63. Those are the two numbers.
Dennis has his hand up.
Thank you. Dennis, hi. Go for it.
Hi. I was just curious was anybody fortunate enough to see the fireball that graced our skies last week in the early morning?
No, I actually asked Sid about it as well, and nothing showed up on his all sky cam. There's certainly plenty of reports. I think some video clips as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say my wife Kathy was actually fortunate enough to see that. She she babysits grandkids at my daughter's place in Langford. So she shows up there early in the morning. She just happened to park the vehicle and was walking toward the house facing the right direction and saw the fireball across the sky. So she was really excited about that. And, you know, and then she told me about it. And then the next day, of course, saw all the reporting on that. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, she was just one of those things. You got to be in the right place at the right time.
So would that have been one of the Leonids?
I don't think so. It was more spectacular than that, apparently. That's what I heard anyways.
Yeah, it was apparently quite a bright and
it was during daylight hours.
It was 6:20 in the morning.
6:20, okay.
Yeah.
So dark.
So it would have been still like kind of dark, but approaching morning, I think. I
kind
never
of like
got
dusk,
Halloween, so
dusk, I
yeah.
would imagine.
Yeah.
Did anybody try to see Bill's was it Europa shadow on Jupiter on Friday night? I tried and I couldn't resolve it.
No.
Yeah, I saw it.
What equipment did you use?
My 6-inch dog.
Yours is so much better set up than mine. Or your eye is better than mine.
Actually, Randy, I didn't want to say anything. I saw one of your telescopes at the telescope thing on Saturday. And now I don't wonder why you can't see things.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to take that.
How you said it, Bill.
You could probably, yeah. You get what you pay for.
Maybe it just needs a good medic.
No, I have rules against spending money on my telescopes. So I gotta wait till it comes up for cheap.
Try next week. John McDonald's gonna have some good stuff here.
Oh, good.
Some other people.
Okay, so we're pushing 9 o'clock. It's been actually very enjoyable. If there's nothing further, I think I will end this Astro Cafe. Is there any further comments or?
Well,
stuff?
I think David might tell us a little bit about a SIG that's happening this week.
David
Payne.
Yes, we're having the SIG this week. Notification went out today. If you're not on the list, let me know and I'll send it to you. We are changing the link. So if you use last month's link, you'll be meeting by yourself maybe.
Tell me what a SIG is.
Which SIG is it, Dave?
The astrophotography.
Yeah, a SIG is just a special interest group. There's a number of them. There's a beginner's SIG, there's the Astrophoto SIG, there's a maker SIG, and there's a citizen science SIG. So they're just kind of Zoom sessions where we get together and talk about the topic.
Okay. And Dave, if you could record it, I'll give you a hug.
That's why we changed the link so I can record it.
Yeah, the stuff David talks to us about is like first class. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll collect on that hug next time I see it.
Reg has the last word.
Okay.
Okay, so with that word of companionship,
Reg has something to say, Jeff.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, first of all, thanks for promoting the talks at UVic, Jeff. And the talk on the 13th of December by Dr. Doug Johnston is going to be interesting. He is involved in a project to try and develop a satellite that will focus on the far infrared. We talked about the infrared work at ALMA. His satellite will get well above the atmosphere, and it'll be interesting. He's trying to get Canadian funding for it, and he'll talk about why we need it and how we can get it. So just keep that date in mind. That's Wednesday, December 13th at UVic.
Good, thank you.
He's a great speaker.
Okay, okay, Lauri, go for it. Oh, you're saying
She's waving
goodbye?
I was saying goodbye.
Okay. So I will now end this Astro Cafe. Take care of everybody. Have a
Thanks very
great
much.
evening.
Yeah, good night.